In this episode, we move into one of the most important realities of security leadership, which is that strong ideas do not produce strong security outcomes unless the right people support them. A new learner may assume that once a major risk is identified, senior leaders will naturally commit resources and stakeholders will immediately agree on what needs to happen. Real organizations rarely work that way because leaders juggle competing priorities, limited budgets, operational pressure, and constant demands for attention. That means a security leader must do more than understand threats and controls. The security leader must explain why a security issue deserves action now, why it matters to the organization's goals, and why others should actively support the effort instead of simply acknowledging it. This is a central part of Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, thinking because management is not only about protecting assets. It is also about building enough understanding, trust, and alignment that people with decision-making authority choose to back security work in a durable and practical way. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Senior leadership commitment is more than a polite yes during a meeting. It means leadership is willing to stand behind the security direction, allocate resources, support necessary changes, and reinforce priorities when resistance appears. That matters because security efforts often touch technology, finance, legal concerns, operations, human behavior, and long-term planning all at once. Without visible leadership support, even a well-designed security initiative can stall when teams face inconvenience, cost, or competing deadlines. Employees and managers usually watch what leaders reinforce through action, not just what they say in principle. If leadership treats security as important only during incidents or audits, the rest of the organization learns that security is optional until a crisis makes it visible. Commitment changes that dynamic by making security part of routine business decision-making. It gives people confidence that the effort is not a passing concern from one department, but a priority the organization is prepared to support over time. Stakeholder support is closely related, but it is not the same as senior leadership commitment. Senior leaders usually provide authority, direction, and resources, while stakeholders throughout the organization influence whether the work succeeds in daily practice. A stakeholder might be a business manager, an operations leader, a project owner, a legal advisor, a technology architect, or even a frontline team whose workflow will change because of a new control. These groups do not all need the same message, and they do not all have the same concerns. One group may worry about cost, another about delay, another about customer experience, and another about accountability. Support develops when those groups understand how the effort connects to their responsibilities and why cooperation is in their interest as well as the organization's. A security manager who ignores those different perspectives may win formal approval but lose practical support. That is why gaining support must be treated as a broad organizational task, not as a one-time request sent only to the executive level. A useful starting point for gaining commitment is understanding how senior leaders tend to see the world. Most of them are not looking at security problems as isolated technical questions. They are thinking about growth, reliability, reputation, customer trust, legal exposure, financial stability, and the ability to meet strategic goals without disruption. That means a security message becomes stronger when it connects clearly to those broader concerns. If a security manager explains a problem only in technical language, the message may sound accurate but still fail to compete with business priorities. If the same problem is explained in terms of service interruption, delayed expansion, avoidable financial loss, or harm to customer confidence, leaders can understand why the issue belongs in their decision space. This does not mean oversimplifying security or hiding technical truth. It means translating the issue into the language of impact, consequence, and organizational responsibility. Leaders commit more readily when they can see how the proposal protects something they already recognize as important. For that reason, one of the most valuable skills in security management is learning how to frame a security need as a business need. This is not manipulation, and it is not marketing language meant to dress up a weak idea. It is the discipline of showing how security problems affect business outcomes and how security improvements support business performance. Consider a system that handles sensitive customer data. A purely technical explanation may focus on weak access controls, poor logging, or inconsistent review of privileged activity. A business-focused explanation shows that those weaknesses can damage customer trust, create costly response efforts, increase regulatory pressure, and disrupt important services. The underlying facts remain the same, but the second explanation helps leadership see why action matters outside the security department. When new learners understand this difference, they begin to see that leadership commitment usually depends less on how severe a technical issue sounds and more on how clearly its business meaning has been explained. Another important lesson is that commitment is easier to gain when the security manager has done the work of understanding organizational priorities before asking for support. Every organization has a current set of pressures that shape decisions. It may be trying to reduce cost, expand into a new market, improve customer retention, accelerate product delivery, or recover from past operational problems. A security proposal that ignores those realities may sound disconnected, even if it is valid. A stronger approach shows how security can help the organization pursue its priorities with less risk and more confidence. If leadership is focused on growth, the security discussion may emphasize resilience, trust, and scalable governance. If leadership is focused on efficiency, the discussion may highlight reduced disruption, clearer accountability, and fewer reactive fire drills. When security leaders speak in ways that reflect the organization's real concerns, they signal that they understand the business rather than operating from a separate world. That signal alone can make people more open to hearing the recommendation seriously. Trust and credibility also shape whether leaders and stakeholders will support a proposal. People are more likely to commit when they believe the security leader understands the organization, exercises judgment, and does not present every issue as an emergency. If the security team constantly uses urgent language, warns of catastrophe in every conversation, or ignores operational constraints, leaders may begin to tune out even when the next issue is truly serious. Credibility grows when security leaders prioritize thoughtfully, explain risks calmly, and distinguish between what is important and what is immediately critical. It also grows when they admit uncertainty where uncertainty exists. Leaders do not need perfect prediction from a security manager, but they do need confidence that the manager is balanced, informed, and realistic. Over time, that reputation becomes a form of influence. When a trusted security leader says a particular issue deserves commitment, leadership is far more likely to listen than when the same message comes from someone perceived as reactive, vague, or disconnected from business reality. Communication style matters as much as message content. Senior leaders often have little time, so they need clarity, relevance, and concise reasoning. That does not mean the discussion must be shallow. It means the most important points should be easy to grasp without requiring the audience to dig through technical detail. A good security leader can explain the issue, the business impact, the reason action is needed, and the expected outcome in language that feels direct and grounded. This is especially important when speaking to mixed groups where some people know the technical background and others do not. If the explanation is too narrow, part of the audience disengages. If it is too abstract, the proposal feels weak. Strong communication keeps the focus on what matters most while being ready to provide greater detail when needed. New learners should notice that effective security leadership is often less about sounding highly specialized and more about helping others make sound decisions with confidence and enough context to act responsibly. Timing also plays a major role in gaining leadership commitment and stakeholder support. Many proposals fail not because they are wrong, but because they are introduced at a time when leaders are focused on other urgent demands or when affected teams feel unprepared for added change. Good security managers pay attention to organizational timing and decision cycles. They know when budgets are being shaped, when strategic planning is underway, when recent events have raised awareness, and when operations teams are already under heavy strain. They also understand that major support is often built gradually before a formal approval moment ever arrives. Informal conversations, early feedback, and background discussions can surface concerns that would otherwise appear later as resistance. This does not mean decisions should happen in secret. It means thoughtful leaders prepare the ground so others are not surprised by the proposal. People support ideas more readily when they have had time to understand them, ask questions, and see how the effort fits with the broader direction of the organization. Resistance should not be treated as proof that leadership or stakeholders do not care about security. In many cases, resistance reflects uncertainty, competing goals, or fear of unintended consequences. A business unit leader may worry that a control will slow customer service. A finance leader may worry that the cost will displace other urgent projects. A technology team may worry that responsibility will increase without added staff. These concerns are not always excuses. They are part of the real environment in which security decisions must be made. Effective security leadership involves listening carefully enough to uncover the actual concern instead of reacting only to the first objection that appears. Once the real issue is understood, the discussion becomes more productive. Sometimes the answer is better explanation, sometimes it is phased rollout, and sometimes it is a revised plan that preserves the goal while reducing unnecessary burden. Support grows when people feel that security is solving problems with them rather than simply pushing requirements onto them. A helpful way to think about stakeholder support is to view it as a coalition-building effort. Security managers rarely succeed by acting alone, especially in larger organizations where authority and expertise are distributed across many teams. Support becomes stronger when influential people across business, technology, legal, operations, and compliance understand the need and can speak to its value from their own perspective. That kind of support is often more persuasive than a single security voice repeating the same message. When a business leader says the initiative protects customer confidence, an operations leader says it reduces disruption, and a legal leader says it strengthens defensibility, the proposal gains breadth and credibility. Building this kind of coalition requires relationship work, patience, and mutual respect. It also requires the security manager to understand what each group cares about and where shared interest exists. The goal is not to create artificial agreement. The goal is to find real alignment so that support reflects genuine organizational understanding rather than reluctant compliance. Senior leadership commitment becomes especially important when security work requires trade-offs. Almost every meaningful security decision asks the organization to give up something in exchange for reduced risk or stronger resilience. That sacrifice might involve money, convenience, speed, flexibility, or tolerance for informal practices that once seemed harmless. Because of that, leadership support cannot remain vague. Leaders must be prepared to stand behind the trade-off when it becomes visible. For example, a stronger review process may slow part of a workflow, but if leadership has clearly committed to the reason behind it, teams are more likely to accept that adjustment as purposeful rather than arbitrary. Without leadership reinforcement, the organization may quietly drift back toward old habits the moment pressure increases. This is why visible sponsorship matters so much. Commitment is not simply permission to begin. It is the willingness of leaders to continue backing the effort when costs, frustrations, or inconveniences become real. That visible backing tells the organization that the security decision was intentional and should be taken seriously. Support also has to be maintained after approval, because initial agreement can fade if people no longer see the value of the effort. A security manager should continue communicating progress, challenges, and outcomes in a way that reinforces why the commitment was worthwhile. This is not about overwhelming people with detailed technical updates. It is about showing that the initiative is moving forward responsibly, that the expected benefits still make sense, and that the organization is learning from the process. Continued communication also helps leadership know when new decisions are needed, when obstacles require intervention, and when success should be recognized. Stakeholders remain engaged when they can see that their support contributed to real progress instead of disappearing into a vague long-term project. Over time, successful follow-through strengthens future efforts. Leaders and stakeholders who have seen one security initiative handled with discipline and transparency are more likely to support the next one, because they have evidence that commitment leads to practical results. At a deeper level, gaining leadership commitment and stakeholder support helps shape organizational culture. Culture is often described as the way an organization behaves when pressure is high and easy choices are no longer available. If security is seen as someone else's concern, commitment will remain shallow and support will weaken when deadlines tighten. If leadership consistently reinforces that security is part of responsible business practice, people gradually begin to treat it as normal rather than exceptional. That cultural shift does not happen from slogans or annual speeches alone. It happens when leaders support sound decisions, managers align behavior with expectations, and stakeholders see that security concerns are handled with seriousness and fairness. A strong culture reduces the need for constant persuasion because support becomes built into how the organization thinks. For someone new to security management, this is an important point. Gaining support for one initiative matters, but building a pattern of trust and leadership commitment matters even more because it changes how future security decisions are received. As we come to the end, the main lesson is that security leadership depends on more than technical understanding and formal authority. Gaining senior leadership commitment and stakeholder support requires a security manager to connect risk to business impact, understand different perspectives, communicate with clarity, address concerns respectfully, and sustain confidence after approval is given. When leaders genuinely commit, they provide more than funding or permission. They give security work legitimacy, staying power, and visible backing at the moments when pressure might otherwise weaken it. When stakeholders support the effort, the organization gains the cooperation needed to turn plans into everyday practice. That is why this topic matters so much in CISM thinking. Security management is not only about knowing what should be done. It is about helping the right people understand why it matters, believe the path is reasonable, and choose to stand behind it long enough for the organization to become more secure in a meaningful and lasting way.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.